Like many parents, my wife and I wanted to have our kids involved in activities as they were growing up. For some of you, this may be dance, drama, or music. We tried those, but the one that took with our kids was sports. As I share my journey as a sports parent, I would like the parents in the audience to think about how they approach their kids' activities. When my kids were in elementary school, we signed them up at New Albany Parks and Rec to play softball, basketball, and baseball. And we found this to be a great experience. They had lots of fun. They got introduced to a team, and their experience was generally filled with lots of cheering and high fives. Our kids wanted to continue after that, so we signed them up for travel sports. And we found this to be a very different experience. There was more of an emphasis on competition and winning, and many of the cheers and high fives that were so much a part of the rec experience seemed to be replaced with coaches yelling at umpires or referees and parents giving tips to their kids so they could keep up with the competition. We found something else to be very different about the travel experience, and that was it monopolized our family schedule. See, it became difficult to have family meals each night because travel baseball seemed to occur every day of the week. It became difficult to go on a family vacation because travel baseball seemed to go every week of the summer. And along with it, we found out that travel sports are often played on Sunday before noon. And this meant we had to make a decision between having our kid go to his travel game or her travel game and going to church. While this was going on, my wife, who has a much better perspective on things than I do, would say to me, "Does this make sense? Is it worth sacrificing our family and our family time for our kids to go to do this?" And with some time and with her persevering, I started to see the wisdom in what she was saying. And I realized I needed to change how I approached my kids' sports. And as I started to realize that, I was reading a book at the time by a gentleman named Jim Thompson. And Jim was a professor at Stanford's business school. And he had a son who played youth sports in Northern California. And he was so discouraged by what he saw that he stopped his job at Stanford University and started an organization called Positive Coaching Alliance, which is dedicated to changing our sports culture in this country. And in the book I was reading, he spelled out a philosophy that had a big impact on me as a parent. And he said there's two goals in sports, in youth sports. The first is to win. And anybody that's been to a sporting event is well aware of that one. But he said there's a second, more important goal in youth sports, and that is it provides an endless opportunity for our kids to learn life lessons and character that will benefit them for their entire lifetime. I had not thought much about the second one. I was all in for the first one, and I struggled to believe in this way of approaching my kids' activities. But with some time, I started to see the wisdom in it. And I thought, if that's where my value is as a parent, and that's what the most important part is the life lessons and character, that I should focus on them. And behind me are a list of some of the life lessons and character that kids can learn in sports. And I thought if I was going to add value to my kids' sports experience, that I should focus on one of those and be intentional about having my kids learn it through their sports. After thinking about it, I decided on being a part of something bigger than yourself. See, like your kids, my kids grow up in a society that values the individual and values individual achievement. And I knew they would get that. But I worried that they'd be too focused on themselves and not realize that there are things more important than them. And I wanted to find a way to help them learn that through their sports experience. So what I came up with was, before each game, I say to my kids, do what you can to help the team. And I do this as a reminder to them that the team is more important than they are, and they are there to help and serve their team and teammates. Happy to report, this has had an impact on my kids. I do think they value the team and see themselves as contributing to something greater than themselves. Something else happened as I started to focus on these life lessons and character that my kids could learn in sports that I never expected would happen. And that is, I became okay with however my kids' sports experience unfolded. And I started to see that if my kid went to take a game-winning shot at the end of a basketball game, or the coach didn't play him as much as he wanted, or the referee made a call that went against him, that in that was a great opportunity for my kid to learn how to handle adversity and be resilient. And I started to see that if they could learn that, that would be of more benefit to them than if they would have made that game-winning shot. It also had an impact on my kids. I don't have anything specific to prove this, but I think by me focusing on the life lessons and character, that it helped my kids perform better. And I think the reason why that happened is it allowed my kids to take ownership of their sports experience. And it also allowed them to play free from the distraction of a helicopter parent buzzing around. Now, you might think that a dad up here talking about life lessons and character in sports, and a dad who obviously doesn't buy into our win-at-all-cost sports culture, that his kids haven't performed very well. I'm proud to say that's not the case. My kids are not elite athletes, but they have done well. I have a son who's a senior in high school, and he played on his varsity basketball team, and he was one of the leading rebounders in Central Ohio. I have another son, the one that played travel baseball, who started on his varsity baseball team as a freshman. This was a team that got all the way to the district championship. This way of approaching our kids' activities applies whether your kid is just doing it for something to do, whether he or she is like most kids and is good and has some skills, or whether your kid is an elite athlete. In fact, if your kid is an elite athlete, this is even more important, because we live in a society that tells those kids and those athletes who are really good that the rules don't apply to them. And that has an unfortunate effect that they end up having stories written about them in the newspapers, or there's a story on ESPN about something that they did that's not so good. So parents, dare to see the bigger picture in your kids' activity. Dare to focus on the life lessons and character that they can learn, so that not only will your kids be winners in what they're doing, but more importantly, they will be winners in life. Thank you.